Righto, so firstly, thanks to the team that's led this more profit from crop nutrition workshop and series of field days. I think you guys are all over the country pretty well. So when Louisa and a few others asked us if we would like to be involved, I didn't have to think very hard about it. So it's great to have some experts in our own backyard. So I was asked just to give a few notes, just to talk a little bit about and put things in a local perspective. Where are we at? Obviously we've had a lot of rain, so most of you guys here have had probably upwards of 200 mils since May. Yep. So we've got a lot of opportunity this year that we're probably not going to capitalise on because of nutrition. And that's what I'm seeing in the field. So just to give some numbers to it, since 2010, a lot of the paddocks out here, if they were cropped to wheat, we've taken about 15 tonnes to the hectare off of those paddocks since 2010. When you do your numbers, that's about 365 kilos of nitrogen. All right, so if we average what we've applied from our client base, we've got about a 30 kilogram per year deficit of nitrogen. So they're just back of the envelope numbers, but that's about what we've got. I think we're seeing that in the crops. So when we do, myself and Albert and Sarah did, a lot of soil tests this year, and we do all of the other years. There's some really strong trends that are occurring and have been occurring since 2010. So obviously up to 2010 we're in pretty severe droughts, and from there onwards we've had what I would call probably better than average years. So yes, there've been dry springs, but they've probably been better than average years across the board. So what have we measured? I'll start with soil P. We've had this year 50% of our samples were less than 25 milligrams per kilogram of coal peat. If you compare that to about 2010, I don't think we would have had many at all, maybe 3 or 5%. 2015, which is only 2 years ago, there was only 15% of our soils that were less than 25 milligrams per kilogram. So in the last 2 years, we've had a massive decline in soil peat, and that's obviously due to the fact that we're taking it out. Soil nitrogen, this year, getting right in this smoke, I feel like a bee. Soil nitrogen, 50% of the samples this year that we did, so this is over about 300 paddocks, shallow and deep, had enough nitrogen to grow 1.5 tonnes to the hectare at 11.5%. So 50% of the samples, it's pretty well half our paddocks only had enough N in the profile to grow 1.5 tonnes. So in a year like this, the reality is water, if we take the fact that we've had so much rain at this point in time, one rain in September, we should be achieving 4 tonnes easily to the hectare. If we don't, we're limited by something else. So interestingly enough, those numbers haven't changed a lot since about 2012, 2013. All right, so nitrogen was very high in 2010 after the drought, and we saw that in the crops. Since then, it's declined very rapidly, and that's just because we're taking the N out through grain, but we're not putting it back in at the same ratio. Soil pH, this is probably a pretty interesting one, but 50% of our soils had less than 5 calcium chloride in the top 10. That's a massive change and a massive jump back from even last year. So last year, being 2015, we're probably about 30% of our soils in that 0 to 10 were less than 5. And that has influenced aluminium, and this is something that I want to maybe raise with the professionals today, but not to the extent that I would have thought it would have. So even though our soils have declined in pH, aluminium has stayed about the same. And that's been confirmed with our lack of response to lime. Okay, so anyway, we can probably digest that a bit more when we get in the paddock. Right, so what else have we got? The other things that we've been seeing, break crops are not providing a massive increase in soil nitrogen, so maybe 20 to 30 units, but after a break crop such as peas or lupins, we're really still only got enough N in the system to grow about 2 tonnes, so not enough. And that's probably the fact that they're starting on such a low base. The fallows have been important, and I think when you look at all of the paddocks that we've been soil testing, the fallows have been by far the highest. So obviously we're getting a lot more mineralisation in our fallows than what we're giving them credit. The fallows have been important, and I think when you look at all of the paddocks that we've been soil testing, the fallows have been by far the highest. So obviously we're getting a lot more mineralisation in our fallows than what we're giving them credit. And that's the same for a lot of the other nutrients as well. So when we talk about trace elements today, when we do a soil test and even a leaf tissue test after a fallow, we find that the crops are healthier. They've got higher levels of just about all of the micronutrients in them. Trace elements are the big one, and I think that's one thing I'd like to really focus on with some of the speakers today, because obviously our experience with trace elements in the past has been that they haven't paid in research and in farming, like broadacre trials. The difference, I suppose, what we're going through now is, like I said, since 2010 we've harvested a lot of grain, and we've exported not only a lot of nitrogen out of the system, phosphorus, but we've also exported a lot of zinc, copper, molybdenum, boron, all those things as well. So maybe what we've experienced in the past needs to be rethought, and we're certainly seeing from samples of testing in good areas and bad areas of paddocks, one of the major differences is micronutrients available to the plants. Right, so I think zinc is probably the one that really stands out in terms of micronutrients, but it's still very hard to get a response in this environment that is reliable. So for me as an advisor, and by all means some of the other advisors during the day pipe up, but if I'm going to advise someone to put on $10 worth of zinc, the returns are just not there to always to have confidence in that. I'd rather see people spend more on nitrogen. So that's sort of one thing for some of the speakers. Again, that's probably your stuff, Nigel, when we get to that. I think that'll be really interesting. So our team have been testing, we're going to visit one of your paddocks, I think, Scotty, today. Good, a bad, a poor, yep. A good one, a crook one. There's no such thing as a crook paddock on Scotty's one. A crook one, so we'll have a look at we'll have a look at one of Scotty's crook stuff, and so I think really hone in on what you think is happening, Scotty, and if we had time, we've got a paddock at Andy's that we could visit on the way through that we've just soil tested. Then when we get to Fitzy's, it's always all good, so we'll have a look at the good, bad and the ugly. Andy's the ugly, by the way. So one of the things I think we've been testing, we've done, our team's done about 20 paddocks where we've done 0 to 10 and 10 to 20 centimetres in good and bad parts of paddocks, and the one thing that is standing out that is extremely obvious is in the poorer parts of the paddocks, they're lower in organic carbon, so they're sandier soils, they've got less cation exchange capacity, they've got less capacity to actually be fertile. And that is absolutely, in every single sample, that's been what we're finding. They're lower in every single micronutrient. Nitrogen, phosphorus and sulphur haven't been a lot different. So I don't know whether you guys have got heaps of underperforming stuff. You think, well, let's throw another 100 kilos of urea at it. It's done nothing this year on those underperforming paddocks. So something to talk about as we go through. The last one that I think is worth mentioning, so that we just keep this in our mind, but if you affect the root system of a plant, you can also then expect to affect the way that it metabolises and accesses a lot of the nutrients. And we've been doing a fair bit of testing for herbicide residues, including glyphosate, and the results are concerning. So if we go to some of these paddocks and you see crops that are not performing the way that they should, we've also got to ask ourselves, well, okay, they're low in all these nutrients, but are they low in nutrients because of something else? And that could be root disease, it could be herbicides, it could be something else. So that's probably about it.